Here we are on language page 164, writing dialogue, and we are looking at Think B toward the bottom of the page. It says for us to first read through the whole story, and then you will rewrite the story on your paper with correct indentation and punctuation. So you'll be turning in the paper, a picture of your paper that you copy, but we're going to actually work it together. So this is like a free grade. Okay, let's first of all read through the story. Walking down the street one day, a lady noticed a little girl leaving a church by herself. When the child passed her, the lady asked, "Where have you been?" "In there," replied the little girl, pointing to the church. "And what were you doing in there?" the woman asked. "Praying," the girl answered. "What were you praying for, dear?" asked the lady. "Nothing," the child replied. "I was just loving Jesus." Okay, so we've read through it, and if you read it aloud, it helps you to understand more fully when one person stops speaking and another person begins speaking. It also helps you to actually hear the words that they're speaking, and you may catch more of that as we go through it and start placing our punctuation marks. So, first of all, it's the beginning of a passage, so we want to indicate that this needs to be its own, this needs to start a paragraph. So first of all, I'm going to use my paragraph symbol here. Now, what does that mean? That means I indent. So when you're writing it on your notebook paper, you're going to scoot that in 1 finger space from the left border of your paper, which is normally blue. Okay, or red, it's red on the left, blue on the right. All right, so walking down the street one day, a lady noticed a little girl leaving a church by herself. Did we hear any quotes in that particular sentence? No, so we just keep going. When the child passed her, the lady asked. So here's a clue word, asked. Anytime I see one of these speaking words, it tells me that I'm going to need to note if there are quotes involved. And this is definitely where my first quote is, "Where have you been?" So I want to put a comma after asked and then my quotation marks above where. That wasn't very neat. It looks more like a 4. Let me fix that. If I can. Nope. Well. Oh, I can. Okay. Okay, looks a little better. "Where have you been?" "In there," replied the little girl. Uh-oh, a new person is speaking. So first of all, I have to end the lady's quote after her question mark. And I noticed in the book they had a mistake, at least in the teacher's manual. It didn't have a question mark after been, and it should have. So fix that on your paper as well. And then since I have a new person speaking next, because I see my clue word replied, tells me that someone is speaking, since that's a different person, I'm going to use a new paragraph symbol here. You won't put those on your paper because you'll just actually come down to the next line and indent again with a finger space. And then in front of "in," I also need to fit my quotation marks. "In there," replied the little girl. So replied is not part of my quote. I want a comma after there and then my end quotation marks. "Replied the little girl, pointing to the church." Now, does she keep on talking next? Let's look. "And what were you doing in there?" the woman asked. I see a new clue word for someone speaking, asked, and it's not the little girl. This is the woman. So therefore, I know I'm going to need a new paragraph here. And you're going to come down to the next line, indent again, and then put quotation marks before "and." "And what were you doing in there?" That's a question. The woman asked. Asked is a question word. So I'm going to put a question mark after there and end quotes. After the word asked, I have a new sentence. "Praying," the girl answered. Well, is this still the lady talking? No. My clue word answered is the girl. Anytime somebody asks a question, you expect someone to answer you. So I need new paragraph, and then I need to make sure I indent that, come down to the next line, indent again, and you're going to put quotation marks. That's really scrunched. Praying, the girl answered. So I need a comma after praying, end quotation marks, and then the girl answered following that on the same line. Now the next part says, "What were you praying for, dear?" asked the lady. So I see my clue word asked. I know that the girl was speaking previously. Now the lady is speaking, so I need another new paragraph and then quotation marks before "What were you praying for, dear?" The woman is talking to the little girl and she calls her dear. So we have to put a comma to show direct address. And we also know that the lady is asking another question, so we put a question mark, end quotes, asked the lady. My next word says nothing, the child replied. So once again, I see a clue word for someone speaking, and it's not the lady because she's the one who asked the question. Now the child's answering. So I need another new paragraph, and then quotation marks, and then a comma because there's only one word there, quotation marks. The child replied, "I was just loving Jesus." Well, who is saying that? It's still the child. So after replied, it already has a period. So I'm going to put new quotation marks, but do I start a new paragraph? No, because it's the same person talking. I was just loving Jesus. She's still giving an answer. So when I look at my finished representation here on this screen, let's count our number of paragraphs. I have 1, come on, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 paragraphs in just that little tiny presentation.